Okay. It's setting up the meeting. So hold on one second. All right. Setting up the meeting. So, okay. That's me talking again. Hold on one second. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and begin again. Sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties. I hope you are all able to find your way over to this link. Thank you for all your patience. And for anyone that was able to make it over to here tonight, thank you guys for coming. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Izzy Starofsky, and I'm the COO of Viv4V, an earth-friendly subscription model period care brand, and I'll also be your MC for the night. For the next hour, we're going to dive deep into sustainability with some of the top leaders from the space. We'll talk about how it's changed their lives, their companies, as well as how they've seen it shift within the last year and where they see the space moving for the future. I will start by introducing you to some of our panelists. First, we have Travis Rosbach. He spent the last 30 years studying and practicing all things business, and the previous 10 years as an advisor, consultant, public speaker, and business coach to a wide range of industries, celebrities, individuals, and even countries. He not only shares his tradecraft with others, but also practices it in the many startups he's currently involved in. He is the founder of Hydro Flask and many other highly successful business endeavors. Prior to entrepreneurship, Travis was a scuba dive instructor, a U.S. merchant marine boat captain, a commercial airline pilot, and was, as is still is, a world explorer. We then have Dina Jalal. Dina grew up eating farm fresh, scratch food. After a decade in traditional marketing roles, she decided to invest in her true passions. FOMO ice cream is inspired by her family, ingredients, and health. It is plant-based, flavor-forward, and made with real ingredients. It launched in 2011 and has grown in tandem with her own family, which includes her husband and 3 little boys. Next, we have Joe Cloyes, co-founder and CEO of Youth to the People. He is a husband and father to 2 amazing daughters. He is a 3rd-generation skincare maker with a passion for innovation, sustainability, and the best ingredients. Youth to the People is about more than just a skincare brand. It is rooted in mindful activism, working toward a more just world. And lastly, we have Caroline Katsarubis. She is the Director of Marketing and Community Relations at Freight Farms, the global leader in hydroponic vertical container farming technology. With a family history of more than 100 years in the fruit and vegetable distribution business, Caroline was led to a career helping to increase food system sustainability and transparency as one of Freight Farms' earliest team members. Today, she works to educate and empower individuals and businesses on how they can bring hyperlocal food production to their own communities and operations. Prior to joining Freight Farms, Caroline received a bachelor's in science in sociology and environmental studies from Northeastern University and has experience working with the National Park Service and Environmental Health Fund. So thank you to all the panelists for coming to tonight. We're going to go ahead and start this over again and do the first 40-ish minutes with discussion, and the last 20 will be up to Q&A for the attendees via the YouTube chat channel. So let's go ahead and begin. I want to start with you guys all telling us a little bit more about where your passion for the sustainability space really began and where it grew from individually.
I will start first again. So I'm Dina again from FOMO Ice Cream. So I first generation, and my family kind of all grew up eating directly from farms, composting, cooking from scratch. And there was always a lot of a focus on being low waste, I think out of need at the time, but also just as part of their values. And growing up that way, I never recognized it for what it was and what we would term now as being sustainable. But it's definitely driven how I operate as an individual and how I hope to grow my family. So a lot of those practices that we kind of did organically as I grew up, I've formalized and kind of tried to live and breathe as an adult, and obviously in my business as well.
I went next, I remember. Okay. So yeah, I think my passion for sustainability started from a really passionate environmental science teacher in high school. And that just made me get interested in it when I went to college, where I started to look more into food sustainability specifically, and the impact that agriculture has on the environment. And that comes from, as Izzy mentioned, a long-standing family history in the food distribution business. So I got to see a lot of behind the scenes of how the food supply chain works in trucking produce across the country from California and Florida, and then getting redistributed to restaurants around Boston. So I definitely wanted to take more of an approach to sustainability in the food supply chain. And that led me to Freight Farms, where we try to empower anyone to grow fresh local produce, regardless of where you are, in our vertical hydroponic container farms.
And I'm Joe. Yeah, my sustainability journey really started. I grew up recycling, doing the basics with my family, and it was always a part of what we did. But after college, getting a sales job at a recycling company that we called ourselves a recycling company, and we made interior moldings out of expanded polystyrene, so styrofoam. And our process was breaking down these large styrofoam pieces into small pellets, and then those pellets would get extruded into molding. So trim and baseboards, things like that. And we sold to large retailers like Home Depot and Lowe's. And what I realized as I was working there, I was in sales, and one of the biggest issues we had was sourcing the recycled goods, sourcing the recycled polystyrene, because that was part of our message and part of the brand was not just taking raw styrofoam and making it, was actually getting the used stuff. And it was really hard to do because most municipalities, you couldn't recycle that material. So there's no way to collect it. And that put me on the path of figuring out what's going on behind the scenes. We're all learning now, but this was 15 years ago. So now we're learning more and more these days around how 10% of the plastic that you put in the bin actually gets recycled, about 30% of the glass. And so seeing that firsthand, it led me down this path. And as I got into the beauty industry with my family, and then we started Youth of the People, I wanted to, being in the beauty industry, try to make a difference in the packaging that we make, knowing how much waste is created from our industry, and just trying to do the best we can to reduce that. And I look at sustainability as something that you can always improve upon. There's no perfect zero sum net zero. Like we're all consuming things. So if we can just reduce that and reduce the impact that those things make, it will have such a huge impact on our planet.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. That's all just so awesome. That's really cool. I grew up in Oregon, and we were reducing and reduce, reuse, and recycling from a fairly early age. I remember and watching Jacques Cousteau on Oregon Public Broadcast kind of kicked off my intrigue into the world and what was going on out there. And I started scuba diving when I was about 14, and started to see like firsthand what was actually happening to the planet from under the water, and so that's kind of what started it for me. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I love hearing about where all you guys have had your sustainability roots originally from. So now knowing how you have your passion for the sustainability space, where do you feel like you guys are able to incorporate that in your everyday lives and daily activities?
I can go. So I think a lot of the things that are just very commonplace in mainstream today are pretty obvious. Obviously, like reusing or using reusable bags, switching your lights to LED lights. But I think one of the things that I try and do most is definitely support local businesses in the area that I live, because both eating and shopping, so local restaurants that I know are owned by people that are actually in the restaurant that you see, as opposed to just like more big box stores or chains, like eating at FOMU to get my daily dose of ice cream, which is great, right around the corner from me. And then I do also compost. We at my household, and I think it's going on about 2 years, and it it did get trendy, which I think is a good thing, because as long as if sustainability trends can catch on more and more, I think that's only a benefit to everyone. But yeah, there was just a moment of realization where I'm like, wow, I am actually throwing out a lot of food every single week. And as much as I can divert that from landfills and have it go towards another purpose is just really great. And then I would say on just like another level, I do clothing swaps with my girlfriends as opposed to trying to shop new. So you get free new clothes, and then you get to have like a more personal connection with your friends.
I love that.
I'll go next. I think, everyone on this panel is probably really mindful of, their waste from day to day. So, I can probably speak for everybody when I say we, do the right thing and recycle, use reusable bags, try not to use a lot of disposable goods. Personally, I think a couple of things that I do that I think is really special, because it's something I can also do with my kids, is compost. And we compost in our backyard, and we live in the city, so our soil is complete crap. It's like all stones and dust pretty much, and we've been able to make some really beautiful soil. And so it's just awesome for the kids to see that whole process and see what comes out of it. And they're awesome now about like sorting, compost versus recycling versus trash, and how we're not going to use that, saran wrap, because we're going to put it in a dish with like, its own cover. And for the most part, I mean, if you were to spy on Dina in her day to day, you'd probably not find me in my car very often. So, I walk my kids to school, and I'm walking or running or, biking to work. And I try to do that as often as I can. Sometimes that can be tough with kids and when you own a business, but I think I do a pretty good job. And then again, to like echo what Caroline was saying, I buy directly from farms as absolutely much as I can. And if I can't, I try to go to local businesses, because that dollar is going to that business, right? It's not being like spread out. It's not being, exploited. You're helping actual people, and they're usually the people that you're seeing when you're there. And to me, that's worth every extra dime, because we want to invest in the community that we live in.
Yeah, it's a billion little things that we can do every single step and every single action that we take to try to do better than we have done in the past. And I believe also that it's not blindly following any dogmatic principles, but really looking at and I don't mean dogmatic, micro specifically to just religion. I mean, propaganda in general. I think it's diversifying every single thing that we do to just keep doing better. And yeah, just everything we do. So that's, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, of course, all the at-home stuff, but one thing that's been really great lately that I've seen is I've been able to partner more and more and talk with other brand leaders and get their resources. What are they doing? Who are their suppliers for packaging or other things? So applying it at home, but also applying it within our business space and learning from one another. That's the best way. And there's a ton of organizations out there, a ton of companies out there that can learn from each other of different suppliers, like I said, or vendors, or just ways to be more sustainable in their business practices. So there's a lot of little things like that.
Yeah, knowing the owners of the businesses, knowing what their morals are and their scruples are, and how they conduct themselves and their businesses. It makes a big difference. That's what buying local is about, is knowing and having that connection. And that can happen on a global scale also, but I think that's also very important.
Yeah, it definitely is all the little things. And Dina, I do love that you are able to ingrain your sustainability beliefs into your kids that way. I think that's so important for the generations to come. So as we all are involved in sustainable businesses and companies and brands, we all know that sustainability isn't necessarily the easiest route for a company. What were some of the challenges that you guys face as a sustainable brand versus your competitors, thinking more so about how being sustainable isn't always necessarily the cheapest option or the easiest option, especially when you are trying to grow and scale your company.
I'll go again. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been increasingly easier because, I mean, we started FOMU about 10 years ago. 10 years ago, nobody ate plant-based and nobody composted, right? And so we had this like grand idea that we were going to do all of these things. And I think in your personal life, you can make these choices, right? You can choose to spend that extra dollar or that extra amount of time to be more sustainable. As a business, you kind of have to decide what are your customers willing to pay for, right? And so at the time, compostable ice cream cups were way more expensive than your traditional, right? They didn't even come in the right formats, right? We had to figure out how we were going to fit ice cream into this size versus like this size. And then going with a actual commercial company that composts that material, right? You can use compostable material, but if you're just throwing it into the trash, that's one thing, right? We were working with vendors that were actually going to take them to commercial facilities and compost them and make sure they went to compost. That was, multiples more than traditional trash. All of these little things that we were putting into place, our packaging, right? Like when we were shipping things across the country, we were using biodegradable packaging. Again, multiples more. And so you have to think, we use organic plant-based ingredients. That's already expensive. Then we're using all of these other materials that are more expensive. What's that price threshold where people are going to be like, I'm not spending that much on ice cream. We don't have much wiggle room, right? We're not like a $50 product or even a $20 product. Our cups of ice cream are $5+. So we really had to do a lot of like kind of soul searching. And in the beginning, I think we actually lost quite a bit of money because we definitely underpriced our product for what it was. And we didn't believe in, maybe we didn't believe in ourselves enough to think that people would pay for it, but people came, and then we learned our lesson and we charged what we should have charged to make sure we could stay in business and actually show people what sustainability is. And the more educated people became, the more they realized it was worth that money. And so I hope that continues. I hope more and more companies choose to do that because I think people are being educated and willing to spend that extra money.
Yeah, that's such a good point. The opportunity, like you have to figure out that where is that threshold of how much your cost of goods versus staying in business. And we just looked at it. We started very simple, glass packaging, all of our paper made using FSC certified paper. And then the next step was the shippers using glass. Okay, the traditional you put bubble wrap. So what can we do to replace bubble wrap in the boxes to make sure they don't break? Because the glass bottle is only good if it doesn't break. So then that came up. So like we started out with the smaller problems, and then now that as we've gotten bigger, and now we're looking at what are our climate goals and our climate actions for the next 3 to 5 years, and what can we do? What science-based approach can we take towards climate change and apply that within our business model, and also to speak about that to our consumers, to our community, really, and hopefully educate them, and then they can take actions within their day in and day out lives. So for us, it's kind of, what do we do internally? We've got a composting bin in our office. We've got water. We have a water filter on tap so that it's just taking the water and filtering that, and everyone has their own hydro flask. And that's how it kind of, just all the little things like that in the office make such a big difference. And we have box untaping parties about once a week when we were in the office together, because we would get so many boxes, and taking all the tape off of all the boxes so then they could properly be recycled. And no one really wanted to do that. So if you just made it a fun, like, hey, 4 o'clock, let's all do this for an hour. So things like that, just incorporate it day in and day out, and then look at the long-term business strategy within our sustainability plan.
That's awesome. You can turn that into like a happy hour, a little party event. Travis,
definitely poured some cocktails during that.
Okay, so as Dina was talking about how, being sustainable isn't always priced at a lower point, kind of thinking about the accessibility of sustainable products. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I was thinking that, being sustainable has sort of turned into this type of lifestyle, and how things that are sustainable are often priced as a more luxurious good. What are your guys' takes on the accessibility of sustainable products and where it's headed?
I'm going to take a crack at this one, even though I think everyone else on this panel might be a little bit better suited to answer this because it's a more of consumer-facing products. Our product is a very high-priced item. It's a little over $115,000, and our mission is to empower other people to use our product to become more sustainable. And I think one of our core values of sustainability that's kind of evolved over the years, we like to look at it through the lens of security. And financial security is one of our core goals for our products and for our customers that are using them. And I think financing is a big thing that we're trying to tackle as a company, and making sure that our potential customers have equitable access to financing so that they can actually purchase our products and services so that they can achieve their missions. And also making sure that our product is, in order for it to be successful, it needs to be financially viable for someone to run their own business off of it. So everything that goes into the technology, how it works together, the software, the services, we want to make sure that someone that's operating it is actually becoming profitable. So I think that's a little bit different of a take on your question, but thinking about sustainability also as security, and specifically financial security for the future.
I love that. That was a good answer. I think you had a good take on it. Does anybody else want to give a stab at the question?
I'm happy to give it a stab. Yeah, it's cost of goods is important, and making a business that can last a long time is very important. And so you just weigh that within your other brand values. And for us, we treat. I think one way we look at it is we treat sustainability, or I would say using sustainable materials, as part of our marketing. And so I think other brands have maybe potentially a larger marketing budget, but a lower cost of goods. We have a slightly higher cost of goods, and we build that into our marketing because it's part of the story we're telling. You're buying these products. Here's why we believe in our skincare, but here's why we also believe in everything else we're doing. And so that story sort of, while it's not a direct paid marketing campaign, it builds hopefully a longer relationship with the community that's coming to your product.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think as sustainability does continue to become a bigger trend, more people will work towards making it a more accessible product to other people. I think in the future, we're definitely going to need that to be the case. So let's move on to the next question. So this last year has turned out to be, nothing like anyone could have ever imagined, clearly. How do you see that the sustainability space has shifted within the last year in your eyes?
I'm horrified. I think that, I hope, 2020 has had such an impact on small businesses, on people's patronage towards small businesses. We see masks on the ground. We see gloves on the ground. We weren't allowed to use reusable bags for a long time. All of these things, I'm just like, oh God, it hurts me so much to even think about it. I hope we rebound from all of those things. I hope it's high priority for people post-pandemic, because I know, obviously health over everything else, but these are true positive trends that I've been seeing, less trash, less waste, more reusable bags. In the city of Boston, there were laws around it, right, that were retracted temporarily. And that's just a really, really hard place to be. It's hard when, people don't want to walk into small businesses because they can order online and they won't be exposed, right? My hope is that there will be some, remediation of that. But I do think some of the great things that have come out of 2020 is at least more people that I know, and I don't know, I'd ask the other panelists the same question. I mean, I literally buy everything directly from a farm now. I mean, every product, almost everything that we buy, I try to get directly from, the source, right? Because I'm not going to grocery stores. I have a little more thought goes into where I'm sourcing things. And so, I feel like I've been more mindful of where it's coming from. And as people hopefully are spending more money on their goods because they are home, hopefully they're giving just a little more thought into where they're getting their things. And I know all of our farm shares and CSAs are like waitlisted and, tapped out. And I haven't seen that literally in the decade that I've been part of them. So hopefully that's a national thing. I don't know what you guys have experienced, but that's like kind of my observation.
Yeah, Dina, same here. For us this year, as tragic as it's been, has brought a lot more, I think, mainstream awareness to these issues. And in particularly for us, major flaws and inefficiencies in the food system. And when COVID hit in March and April, we were just seeing a tremendous spike of interest coming to our website and people actually filling out forms with more like longer, descriptions of why they're interested, making their community more food secure and less reliant on imports. And then separate from COVID, because everyone slowed down and I think paying more attention to the disasters happening around us, from the wildfires in California to the droughts that also have significant impacts on the food supply, and it affects your prices, it affects your access. We're currently going through another E. coli outbreak that just recently got announced yesterday or today. So I think as terrible as this year has been, I'm hoping everyone's kind of having a wake-up call to these issues that are easily overlooked.
That's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
And I hope that people are getting outside to actually see what's going on outside as well, and watching what's actually happening after the fires, after the math. I didn't really say that properly, but aftermath of fires here in Oregon. We just got, you guys in California, obviously we're going through the same thing up in Washington, all over the country, all over the world. The whole world's on fire. And then it's not, and then this happens and that happens. And if we stay locked in front of these screens and we don't go outside to go see where the trees used to be, are we going to be giving our money to planting trees, or what are we going to be giving our money to? And it's been a tough one, hasn't it?
There was also that moment where everyone was like, oh, with no one driving cars or taking planes as often, the animals and the earth kind of had a rebound effect. And everyone was like, whoa, humans have a terrible impact on the environment. Maybe we should lay off a little bit. So I think that was one at least good thing to come out of this year and slowing down.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one. Yeah.
Bittersweet, isn't it all? Yeah.
Hard lesson to learn, but I think I think that's what we're looking. We have an office, and we're not in the office, and I don't, even once we are able to, if you will, open up the office, I don't know that we'll ever be back to everyone in there Monday 9 to 5. There's no point. We're working well the way we are. We're very fortunate for that, and talk to many other business owners feel the same way. And you're hearing that from very large corporations that are like, don't need to ever come back, work anywhere. And that will make an impact and make a change. And now if we can apply some of the other learnings, into the flip side is the waste stream, as you mentioned earlier, is just getting inundated with more things being shipped, and gloves and masks and all that. So it's both.
Yes, it will
definitely. And still get outside and see some trees, because that is, we need more trees.
So yeah, it will be interesting to see how the rest of this year plays out and moving forward as COVID, hopefully, fingers crossed, ends up coming to some kind of close. So then thinking more towards the future with more hopeful thoughts to come potentially, where do you all see the sustainability space heading in the next 5-10 years?
I think it's what's exciting, I will say, even in a year like this, is I've seen a ton of innovation and a ton of improvements coming out. And I think similar to 10, 15 years ago when organic started, it was like just subtly you somewhat find some organic things in the market, and then you find more and more. Now it's like kind of it's expected that you can find organic very easily. It's starting to become more expected than most of the things you can buy. Almost anything. It's sustainably made, it's locally made, and I think that is starting to have a huge impact. And that will allow for is prices to come down. As we talked a little bit earlier about the cost of goods being harder, as the demand for recycled plastic bottles comes up, those will get cheaper to make. We will recycle more plastic bottles as a country if there's a commodity value to that recycled material. And so as everyone's sort of demanding that, hey, I want my plastic, if it is plastic, it's recycled plastic, that will create a chain reaction where businesses can now make money from it and everything will turn and happen quicker.
And being adaptable to that.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that, once we can come back to making right decisions because we're not kind of being told certain things because of the pandemic, you can't unlearn things, right? And so my hope is that once people understand what we're doing to the earth and understand how they can do better, they'll go back to doing that once they're able to safely. And so I'm hoping that education continues. And it's been, every year, I think, we get better and better as a country, as hopefully a world, at being more sustainable. And that doesn't necessarily even mean, it could be, again, not using plastic bags, right? Using, reusable things. That doesn't cost a penny. That's just something that you can do in your day to day. And I feel like once people start doing that and learn why, hopefully they don't unlearn it and regress. So I do have a positive outlook for the future. And just like Joe was saying, I think that the more companies that kind of respond to that and the more options you have, as a company, then the more our costs can go down and the more accessible it can be to our customers going forward. So very hopeful.
I am too, because another thing worth mentioning, I would say, is that I feel like it's harder and harder for companies to get away with greenwashing, especially with the generation coming up. They probe and they look into things and they make sure it's not just surface level sustainability that you're slapping like some label on your product. They dig deeper, which is exciting because I think that really pushes the market to be more sustainable.
Agreed.
I think that's great news. I really do. I think it's good that people are doing their investigations and they're seeing who owns these companies. What are they doing with this money? Where is the money going? How are they treating employees on the far side of the world? How are they treating employees close to home? And that's awesome. And not just hiding behind these marketing, slogans that anybody can make in 15 seconds and slap on a website and make believe that it means anything. So that's awesome.
Totally.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, we have one more question. We're going to get a couple answers out of this one. This is probably my favorite question because I want to quickly have some time for it. So can any of you guys talk a little bit more about the importance of voting with your dollars?
I think that's the biggest impact that you can make, because anytime you're purchasing something, you're saying, I support this, whether that's how the organic food movement started, the local food movement started. If you want to see more options like that, you need to show that there's a demand for it. And I think just following and supporting businesses that you have similar values to. So I like to shop at stores where it's women owned and operated, or it's minority owned and operated, or it's just like local to my area. So I think you really have the power to support people like you that have similar values. So if you want to see your dollar go far, you use it to follow your values, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Making the right decision isn't always the cheapest. Oftentimes it is not, right? But in my opinion, I think all our panelists, anyone who's really attending has made a conscious effort to learn about if not make better decisions. And, you know, where you spend your money, you know, everyone has $1,000 iPhone, but people don't want to spend an extra dollar on an ice cream, or, you know, an extra couple dollars because on, you know, your local, you know, grass-fed meat or whatever. You know, I think those little things that you can do, if you think about it, if you really reprioritize what you think is valuable, and, you know, what you're investing towards, think about it. You'll make better decisions. And I think slowly but surely people are recognizing those things. They're learning and they're not unlearning it. And hopefully that's a positive trend going forward.
Reducing the static, reducing the outside ice cream companies that don't fit the morals and values of the customer. If there's 1,000 ice cream companies, but only one fits the morals and values of your soul, then just eat that ice cream and cut out all the outside noise and just start living easier and easier. We don't need a lot, but what we do have, it's nice to know the story behind it, to know the value of it, know why I'm paying more for it. But also keep checking them, keep them in check, keep the companies and the businesses in check. Because if they do have an opportunity to go run afoul, they very well may. So keep the businesses in check that you frequent also, I would say.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's just it. Voting with your dollar. That's how you do it. Where you spend your money has an impact, and it's so easy to get anything from anywhere at any time nowadays. But what's behind that? And I think understanding that, you know, who started the company, or what does the company believe in? And there's some massive corporations that are doing really great things too. So it's not just only by little stuff from little companies. It's across the board, but just voting with your believing in where that dollar was spent, and literally voting as well is hugely important on that.
Most definitely. And I do believe that we are headed in the right direction with people realizing that voting with your dollars is very important. So that is my last question for the night. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to any of the questions from the viewer audience. If any of you want to go ahead and add them into the chat, feel free to do that now, and we'll go ahead and do that for the next 20 minutes. Someone asked, have you been to India? Has anybody been to India?
Yeah.
Not in this lifetime.
I second that answer.
Yeah, not for me. So only one of them.
Neither, don't worry. Someone did ask, does anybody have anything really big coming in the space, in your space in the future that you are able to add into this webinar without getting in trouble?
What was the question? Anything big?
Is there anything big in your future, and any projects that you're working on with the company, or any companies, or that you see coming soon that you're able to talk about?
I can't talk about it, but it's coming, literally 1 month, guys. Just stay tuned.
I hope so.
I will. So including your products, do you have any recommendations to switch to sustainable?
Do your homework. Do your homework. Go out your front door and go see what's around you. And then if you enjoy that, continue that. If you cannot do that, then get on the line and do your homework and do your research, and then go find what you can relate to and do that. Would be my recommendation anyway.
Yeah. I would say you just educate yourself, right? Because we all use different products. Someone may have a use for something that I have no use for. But if it's something that you use and you invest in regularly, then, take your time to make sure it's the right thing that you're investing in regularly, right? Vote with your dollar. And if it's just kind of everyday stuff, then, exactly what Travis was saying, walk out your door, and preferably walk and go there and put your dollar locally, because that's always, helping a human, and hopefully they're making great decisions locally too.
You walk, it's good for you. For real.
Yeah, walking is good.
Walking is
one thing that I would just add that I only learned very recently was almost all utility companies across the US have an option with your electric supply to switch it to be from renewable sources only. I only recently learned this like 6 months ago. And I went to my utility company on the site. I changed it. Now all of the power in our house is only from renewable energy, solar, wind. It's added about $5 a month to my bill. So it was not, it was just clicking that little button. And now they buy all of that amount of power that I use from renewable sources versus traditional. So that's something I learned. Our whole company is, almost everyone in the company has embraced it across the US. And they're like, yeah, it's super easy to do. So
why hasn't there been a campaign around that?
Exactly. Right.
I don't know.
And it's less than $100 a month for a large space. I mean, it's ridiculously cheap, yet nobody knows about this.
Yeah.
That was cool because we were like, oh, should we get solar panels at home? Everyone's doing that in California. And I'm like, well, this took me 2 clicks. I didn't have to worry. It was easy.
Yeah.
So
and that's what with your dog.
And they're doing that. I have a friend in New Jersey that they're same thing. They're doing it. So I know it's across the US. It's very easy to find in most of your utility companies.
Awesome.
Good to know. I'll make the switch. So let's go move to the next one. What is the most interesting part about working during COVID-19 with sustainability efforts, and how have you been able to adjust to it?
Can you repeat the beginning of that question?
Yeah.
That was a good one.
What is the most interesting part about working during COVID-19 with sustainability efforts, and how have you been able to adjust to it? So I guess has there been any changes in, let's say, like your supply chain or anything because of COVID-19?
Everything is shifted. Everything on a global scale. The whole world's feeling it. It's not just America. We're not the only ones going through, the highest numbers in 7 years or whatever we say on the news. The whole globe is feeling this pandemic, and the entire food supply and all commerce has just completely shifted over from this. And it's, people not showing up for, I've tried to get a trailer and they don't have trailers. Why don't they have trailers? Well, because nobody wants to go to work to make trailers anymore because they're making too much money staying at home. Why don't we have any trailers from other countries? Well, because the factory had to shut down because nobody wants to go to work. The whole world shifted. It's a pivot. It's the great pivot. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen
it kind of stinks because I feel like our trash is now, we wear gloves and masks all the time, right? Our trash that we prided ourselves on being really lean and low is now full of masks and, full of gloves, and, we can't reuse containers, and people have to take paper bags, right? They weren't able to use recycled or the reusable bags. So it's been a trip, right? I think to what Travis was saying, we weren't getting shipments in on time or at all sometimes, right? And our costs of those goods were just skyrocketing. So, I think if businesses survive 2020, then it's probably a pretty strong business, or, one that the, leaders are being really thoughtful around. But it's been a tough year. For businesses, for individuals, it's been rough.
Amen. So let's move to the next one. How do you think sustainability applies when it comes to healthcare?
I'm
gonna let someone else answer because I may go on a tirade. So go ahead.
I think it's just two different areas, and I think it's tough to. How do you keep people safe, but also try to be as sustainable as possible? And everyone has a different interpretation of what health and safety is, and that's that's their own right. So how do we support that, but also, nationally, have an aligned strategy, if you will, that allows for it. But I think in the end, wash your hands. I don't know. It's something as simple as that. I think we've all learned. I think more people wash their hands this year than ever before, right? And you see the difference just from that. So
yeah, I'm gonna jump into another question because we're limited on time. We'll be on for another 10 minutes. Are you guys hopeful that there will be improved technology in the future that will make commonly used fuels as in oil and coal and materials more environmentally friendly?
It's happening. It's happening right now. It's happening, either next door to you or on the far side of the world. Someone has it. Someone's coming up with it. Someone's studying. Someone's working on it. It's happening. We have to keep that hope that it's happening, because we can't keep running at this rate. This is not going to last. This is not sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, and you're seeing it more, right? Like there's wind, there's solar, there's everything you can make. There's so many even like a lot of our resources, oil and gases, go to plastics, right? Well, there's a lot of bioplastics that are made from way more renewable feedstocks. So things like that. If we have to use plastics, there's better options coming out, and things continually evolve. And I think we've hit that point as a human race that everyone sort of is starting to understand that. And with that, it's shifting it. And I said it earlier, it's shifting the commodity value of these renewable resources are more valuable now. People want that. They want to be in that space. And it's, I think that ultimately, yes, we'll keep driving it and we'll change it. It has to, as you said, it has to. There's no option. So
yeah, there's only one Earth.
Exactly.
So on to the next question. Is it hard to educate your customers on your sustainable mission, or are you seeing that more consumers are well educated on the importance of sustainability?
Yeah, as I mentioned in the past, I feel like people are far more educated now about the benefits of, composting and, what do I do with this material? Can I reuse this pint? I think we live in a pretty progressive spot. And so I would guess that, myself and the rest of the panelists live in places where people are far more educated about sustainability and about making, better choices than some other areas of the country. But I do have hope that that'll kind of all seep through, and more people over time will just know to make better decisions, and that education will be so important, and the education of why things cost as much as they do, and every year it gets easier, and hopefully it'll be like a non-issue, right?
Yeah, I would say our actual consumers, being the people that buy our farms and start farming, there's like little to no education that actually needs to go into it, because they're again voting with their dollars and starting these businesses, so they already understand the value of the product and the value of their own motivation to start growing food locally. But I think a big component of our marketing, and what makes me so interested in my job, is that education is a key component. Educating around the food system, around the importance of democratized access to local food. So I think education and marketing in my job go hand in hand, which is really exciting, because but also tough, because a lot of people have opinions about food, and there's a lot of stigma around hydroponics and indoor farming. And it's good because it keeps you honest too. And it pushes us as a business to drive towards being more sustainable, whether that's through our sourcing or the nutrients that we use, because as an industry, we're so young. So we need that pushback from consumers, or just like, general, the community of fans that we have, in order to evolve the industry and bring out more sustainable options for us as a business.
I like that answer. Okay, so on to the next. What is something students can do to be more environmentally friendly, specifically those who may not have a secure income or control over their diet? So they probably are in like a food hall or something.
I mean, yeah, being as plant-based as possible is always going to help out within the sustainability space. And I think that can be interpreted sometimes being more expensive, but usually there's a lot of options. And I think even just the reduction of your meat consumption can make a huge difference. It's not that everyone has to be vegan, Just if everyone reduced a couple less burgers a month, it would make a huge difference globally. So just little things like that can make a big difference.
And I think being a student too, you're in a unique position to use your voice on your campus potentially, and advocate for more sustainable options at your college or university. So do they have a composting program? Do they support local farms? The list goes on and on. Like you can start a campaign to make some facet of your experience more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even things like not using a lot of disposables, right? So when you're dining, not using disposable utensils or plates or packages. At least in my house, we try not to eat much packaged food in general. I mean, it's generally less healthy and more processed, but you're just the waste, right? The box and then the package within the box and then the box within the box now that we're shipping everything everywhere. So, I think making choices to eat whole foods, definitely plant-based, and then just, be mindful of those disposable things that you're kind of ripping through every day.
I agree. And I liked what you said, Caroline, about how, being a student on campus, you do have a voice in that community, and you can try to get your university to just make simple switches. So let's go on to, I think we have time for one more question. Any tips anyone has found for separating work time / home time when those spaces don't have many boundaries, if any, right now?
That's a whole other level of sustainability right there, like your own sustainability as a human, because everything that we are going through is really anxiety provoking. We're in a pandemic where if you take a deep breath, you're at risk for potentially dying. So like the mental health issues alone that are coming out of this year is crazy. I would say like draw the line, your work life balance. You have to draw those boundaries, whether that is, setting yourself as away at a certain time at night or exercising. I know Peloton stock has gone through the roof because everyone's getting the Peloton bike. I definitely also fell into that trap, but I'm very grateful for it because exercising is key to mental health and the balance between work and life. But I think you really, that is sustainability also. So definitely take care of yourself for sure, and draw those boundaries where you need to.
Yeah. I mean, I would I would say if anyone finds that balance and has, mastered it, please loop me in, because everything is like this at the moment. But as a woman, I'm a little grateful for kind of this transparency, right? So we're all seeing each other, right? We're seeing each other in each other's homes. You can hear kids in the background sometimes screaming, right? And I think it brings the human back to the profession. And, like a couple decades ago when I started working in the corporate world, I felt like, you had this like work life and then you had this home life, and they didn't intertwine, and you would feel bad if you had a doctor's appointment or if your kid was sick and you had to leave, right? Now everyone can see what's going on. People recognize people have families and they have to split their time. And I'm somewhat grateful that that's happened, because it's no longer, a stigma like, oh, I've got to go do this in my personal life. Oh, that's so bad. No, I mean, as much unbalance as there is now, I think there is like a very human element to what we're doing, as, a very, very large community now. So that's kind of like one of my, I guess, personal takeaways of 2020.
Go find your place that you want to be, go there often. And go there even more if you can, and get away from the burning electronics, unplug them if you have to. And the human body is far more productive with rest. So if you need to physically unplug your router at 5 o'clock, then do that, and go outside, go in the water.
Yep. Yeah,
Still
go
take
outside.
vacation.
Go take vacations.
Get on your bicycle, get on your rollerblades.
Mm-hmm. I would say one thing we've worked on a lot internally lately at the company is just owning your calendar, because everyone you can get in and out of the meetings and 2 seconds, which work-life balance is also now you work from home. So you can start as early as you want because there's no commute, and you can end as early and late as you want because there's no commute. And you just, then you click in and out of meetings. So making blocks in your calendar for personal time. That's something that I've taken to, and we're starting to roll out throughout the company. That's made a big difference. I've blocked it on my calendar. Certain times you can't book meetings with me, so I have time to just whatever I need to do, just to have time. And then having it with my wife, we have we have alternating schedules, so we juggle back and forth. We coordinate calendars ahead of time, so we know who's doing what, when, and how with our kids, and we're us both working. So just finding that space and figuring it out.
Yeah, I like that, owning the calendar. I'm gonna use that.
Thanks.
Okay, so I guess that is all for tonight. Thank you guys all for coming. Please go ahead and check out Viv for Your V for yourself or any of your menstruating friends. We have a coupon code webinar 2020, again, webinar 2020, all caps, for checkout for 15% off your next order. We have some exciting stuff coming out next year, so stay tuned and keep a lookout for that. I hope you all have a great rest of your night, and thank you so much again for coming. Okay, bye everyone.